I've done a bit of research today on our Human Rights Commission. In and under our Human Rights Commission, there is the right to food. That's a right, as says the Human Rights Commission. Under the right to food, it's got the children and their right to food. It says this: children are especially vulnerable to the lack of adequate food. And by the way, for those listening on the audio podcast, this is the New Zealand Human Rights Commission. Because if you look at international ones, it talks sometimes about issues that you'd more see in a third world country. But this is the New Zealand Human Rights Commission. Children are especially vulnerable to lack of adequate food as they need nutritious and safe food to grow. If children and their families are unable to get adequate food, support should be provided, e.g., through school lunches. Food made available through such support should, and then there's a link going off to meet the dietary needs of children. That goes off to the United Nations Human Rights article. Within there is a sector that talks about the rights of children, and amongst other things it says this: if children and their families are unable to enjoy the right to food by the means at their disposal, support should be provided, for instance through school meal programs or food aid. We go back to the New Zealand Human Rights Commission, and this write-up on children and the right for food says, the Convention on the Rights of the Child protects the children's right to food in the context of the right to life, survival and development, to health, to nutrition, and to an adequate standard of living. So, Jan, my question is it possible that this government are breaching the rights of these children, the human rights of these children, by not delivering on any of those requirements as per the Human Rights Act 1993?
It is absolutely possible, and it is certainly something that needs to be investigated further. The whole reason why the lunch program was started in the first place was because food insecurity was so great going through the COVID times, and government policy can impact upon that, and government policy can make those sorts of areas that are so hard for people better. And that's why the healthy free lunch school program was so important as part of reducing food insecurity. What we're seeing now is we're seeing cost of living really impacting on people, and to minimise the healthy lunch program is a huge part of the growing food insecurity that many of us are seeing out in our communities. So I absolutely believe that there is a fundamental right, as you've pointed out, through the documentation that exists and the acts of Parliament that exists there now, for young people, children, to have food and to have food security. So you are spot on that this needs to be investigated further.
And I guess I know what some of the comeback will be. The comeback will be, well, they are providing food, so they can tick that box. But are they providing food which meets, quote, the dietary needs of children? So if it doesn't tick that box, then they seem to be in breach of these children's human rights. And I guess to test it, someone needs to lay a complaint with the Human Rights Commission. I guess we've got people watching right now, maybe people within Parliament. That would be the way to test this, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely. It's not something I've personally thought about up until now, but it's something I can look into. But you've got a whole lot of people that you are now appealing to, who I know, because I get emails from the same people telling me about these things. I know that that's something that they will investigate as well.
That is the Labour spokesperson for education, Jan Tinetti. Jan, thanks so much for joining us for the first time tonight. Love to have you back.
Thank you. Love to be back.